Hi everybody, welcome out to the Dice Tower. My name is Chris Yi.
I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Joey Evans.
And I am the Nord. That is about all I know about Skyrim. We're taking a look at Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the adventure game.
Ooh.
This is a brand new video game.
I don't think there's enough words in that title.
There's not, no. So this is a board game based off the very recent video game called Skyrim. It's certainly not 11, 12 years old.
Nope.
And this is, as you can tell, kind of a big box. This is from Modifius, partnering with Bethesda. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way really quick.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you have played the video game Skyrim.
Oh, pick me.
So we have one person on this
pick me yet.
on this council of three that have.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't need to, but
No.
maybe it'll tie into a little bit of the appreciation. We'll find out. So we're gonna cut to a quick overview here of how the game plays. But one thing that you should check out, if you haven't, if you're not aware, that the Dice Tower, we have what's called the Dice Tower Digest, which is a newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks, bi-weekly.
Via email.
That's semi-weekly, yeah.
Yep.
You can sign up for that. So go ahead and check out dicetower.com, and you should be able to find a way to sign up for that. If you want to stay up to date about what the Dice Tower is doing, some of the recent news and stuff about us, make sure to go
And
check
fun
that
facts.
out. And fun facts about some of us, the cast and crew ourselves. I'm going to show you how this game plays, and while you watch the overview, Joey and I are going to make any guesses about what happens in Skyrim.
Yep.
Let's go.
And we're going to know.
Here's a view of everything on the table set up for Skyrim. You can see that this is a very large board, and also there's a lot of other things going on the side here. So I'm not going to give you a complete overview of the game. I'll show you a few different parts of it and walk you through what a turn or a round looks like. Each player gets a character card that they get to pick, either side representing them. There's the Imperial, the Orsimer, the Dunmer, the Altmer, the Khajit, and the Noid. You can pick whichever one you want. They all have some different abilities. This is where you will store experience as you accomplish things in the game, and then you can level up by hitting these numbers here, coins, and the 3 basic resources. This is going to be your health track over here, your stamina, and your magicka. You'll have some starting items, which we'll go into as we cover combat. There are also some good player aids that cover the different aspects of the game. Each player is also going to start the game with a personal quest, which is going to have a location and how to resolve that quest. If you pass it, if you fail it, you get these different conditions, and then how the quest continues by making choices to draw more cards out of the card box. As players complete their main quests, then they'll get to the chapter finale, but there's also going to be personal quests that you can collect on the side to get extra rewards. Each round of the game starts by flipping over an event card, then all players will move their figures up to 4 spaces on the board, and then resolve an encounter where they're located. When you flip over an event card, it can be an instant, or an ongoing, or it can become a world quest, which means this is a new quest that players can accomplish by going to that location. Every time a card is revealed, it'll add a certain number of threat, which either have to go onto your quests, which threaten you to fail them, or they can be added to city strongholds over here, which will make it harder to interact with those key cities throughout the map. After the event is resolved, players will all be able to move their characters simultaneously, and then in player order they will resolve the different types of encounters wherever they choose to land. If you enter a stronghold, you can go to the market so that you can get new types of cards to upgrade your character. You can upgrade these by giving them more attack or a stronger defense, or even enchanting them with magicka to give them special abilities here in the towns. And then you can also go through a stronghold encounter card where you might be able to do a test, get some benefits, and maybe even get more personal side quests as well. Otherwise, you can go to a wilderness spot where you'll resolve one of these wilderness encounter cards, which look very similar to that, allowing you to get bonuses and then maybe even more quest cards. The other types of encounters are at any of these other locations which are considered dungeons of different types. You'll go to the dungeon encounter card down here, flip over these types of enemies and begin a combat, and we'll explain how combat works here in just a little bit. The last type of encounter you can do is if you are at one of your quest markers, you can resolve the quest of that type. You read the flavor text, make sure you're in the right city, of course, unlike I am in this example, and then you roll the dice to see if you succeed at this. If you have a matching skill from leveling up, you can also add additional dice to that, and if you have successes, then you read the success side. If you, say, did not roll the success symbol or the required amount, you can push by spending different resources to add dice to that test as far as you want until you either pass or run out of resources. A good chunk of your game will be spent doing combat. In this case, I'm fighting a restless Draugr who has 3 heavy armor and 1 light armor. I can start by doing a sneak attack. If I roll 2 of these symbols here, I will successfully sneak against him. So you always start with 3, but in this case my armor gives me an additional die for a sneak, and I have leveled up in the sneak ability. So as long as I roll 2 of those symbols, I can do a sneak attack. In this case, I didn't. So you're going to see now just a normal round of combat. Normal combat starts by rolling the enemy die and matching up their icon to see what type of damage they'll do. Now, not every enemy has every type of symbol, so if I rolled this one or a blank symbol, then the enemy wouldn't do anything this round. But I, like a fool, rolled the heavy axe, so he's going to do 4 heavy armor damage against me, of which I have no shield. I could either take all that damage and fight back, or I could use a different ability down here. I can either try to swing, stab, or dodge. Well, I'm going to dodge by spending 1 stamina, and I get to roll 3 dice. As long as I roll 1 of those basic successes, which I did, I avoid all damage. The next round commits again. The enemy rolls. This time he whiffs. So I'm going to spend 1 stamina to do the stab action. I get to roll 3 dice, but you'll notice here I also have one-handed leveled up, so I can roll 4 dice. If I roll a triangle, which I did not, I could do 2 damage to him. I can always push by spending another stamina to roll another die, and if I were able to have rolled that triangle symbol, I would do 2 damage to him. Once you completely get rid of all of an enemy's health, they are defeated and you win the combat, and you'll get different rewards based on the scenario. That's a brief overview of how the game is played. Of course, there's many rules I'm missing, but as it's a campaign, they provide boxes for each player and for the main board state to be able to save the pieces that you've unlocked over the course of the game. With instructions how to do so. There's also different game modes where you can play free roam to just enjoy the story. You can have a competitive game, or you can play hard mode or story mode. So there's just a few different changes in there. That's Skyrim, the board game.
So that's a quick overview. Like I said, it's not going to go over all of the rules because there are plenty of rules to be had in this game.
A lot of rules.
Tell me really how you feel about the rules, Joey.
Oh, it's just one of them. More. Yeah, there's a lot of rules.
This book almost has a spine to it.
It does.
That's how big the rules
That's
are.
the thing.
Which is weird because conceptually, a turn is not that complicated.
It's not. That's the thing.
The round structure is not complicated. But there is a lot of rules.
There's a lot of specificity of
Right.
different. This is what happens when you have this type of encounter. Like I showed an example of how combat works. But that's how one type of combat works, because you could choose to, if 2 adventurers are in the same spot, we could have a group combat, and there's some other
Yes.
additional rules on top of that. You might be able to fight at some point multiple enemies at once instead of like in action movies where they're like, I'm gonna go fight you, and then he's got like 3 henchmen that are like, okay, wait till he's dead. It's my turn now.
Right. That's one of those
It's very
things that's
Final
like,
Fantasy like.
Right. The rules are simple, but there's all these extracurricular stuff that could happen that you're like, well, what if this? Because at its core, it's a simple game.
Yeah.
But then you just do more things, like you say, an extra person jumps into battle, 2 more bad guys jump into battle, this guy's not fully defeated, and it's just little bit of fiddly things that you have to figure out along the way.
I think that, so being the one person who's played this video game,
Right.
I think that they tried so hard to be true to what Skyrim was as a video game that they got in their own way. I feel like there's so many rules in there that you're like, okay, I see how this, fits with that mechanically from the game, which is awesome when it comes to the storyline and the world that you're in. Like, those things are absolutely wonderful. But then it adds on all these extras of, okay, now we have to level up our character a certain way, and if you want to go shopping, you have to do this specific thing at these specific locations. It's cool that it ties in, but you can't get this thing over here, and you can get it over there. And when we fight, these are the intricacies and the calculations and the stuff going on.
There's a page in the rulebook here that shows all the different steps that you can upgrade in the 3 different categories.
Which is the entire tech tree
That's
from the game.
thing. Yeah.
And that's really neat, but also like, in general, if I'm just an average Joe player, and I think that this game should appeal to people who haven't played the video game, I have the choices of upgrading illusion, or conjuration, or destruction magic, or restoration, or alteration, or enchanting. There are like 5 different types of like shadow thievery skills that could all kind of be put together. Like sometimes a skill check comes up and it's like, do you have lockpicking? And you're like, yeah, I do. And you look, oh, no, I have pickpocketing, I have sneak upgraded. Oh, I don't have have this particular one. There's so many.
There really are.
And it's the same thing with the magic when you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to focus in on this type of magic. And then all of a sudden, all the spells that you get given to you are just a very similar but slightly different magic. You're like, okay, great.
I would have liked if they had just, as for the board game's sake, maybe just kind of crunched categories together. And that would feel cooler.
And that's what I mean by it got in its own way. Like, it's very true to the game.
Right, almost to a fault sometimes.
To a fault, yeah.
Now, all that being said, right, that's a lot of complaints about the rules density, about the just kind of porting over stuff from the video game.
In the rulebook itself, some things are mentioned, and then you have to look at the end to see what they're talking about. Just the format of it, it was off on the rulebook.
Did you use the rules, the tutorial scenario to learn the game?
Yes, yes.
Did you think that worked pretty well?
I'm glad it exists.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think it. I don't think it covered everything. No. What about you?
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think that it's pretty good. It could use a few more pictures.
Right.
When this is like it comes with the second book that is just, hey, this is how you can learn the game, and then it references things and it doesn't show you where those things are. So it could have been a little bit tighter, but I feel like what this does really well is it gives you the flow of the game. Mm-hmm. And when I play these games that you can get bogged down in rules, at some point, once I know I'm playing the game mostly right, I just kind of say, someone asks, what happens in this exact specific instance? And I go, this way.
It's cooperative. Let's make it up.
Yeah.
It'll work out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've gotten to the point, I've played this enough that I know 95% of how things will resolve. And that other 5%, I just say, it's good enough. Let's go this way.
I agree.
Do you like the general flow of the game? Flip over an event card, move, do your encounters.
I think that it's very basic and smooth in that way.
Okay.
Like you do those things. I honestly would play this as a solo game and not a multiplayer game. And then at that point, does it matter? I mean, you're still moving, you're still flipping over cards, but you're essentially like, I will take whatever encounters I get. Like I'll move, I'll encounter, or I'll stay in the same place and I'll just do a couple encounters.
I guess I don't understand what you mean by does it matter?
Like, or I guess it does matter, but I'm not sitting and waiting for the other person to do something. Like I'm just affected with the board if I'm playing solo. Mm-hmm. And so other stuff isn't happening between turns.
Okay. I think we're speaking to two different points. And I know that you're going to talk about player count for sure here in a second. I think that the structure of a round, once you get over the very large hurdle of the rules and everything,
Right.
This is the game flow is when the game gets out of its own way. It doesn't have 12 phases. It doesn't have a huge upkeep and all that stuff. It just says, event card, move, everybody move, and then you do your encounters.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that system really works well because then it just kind of feels like, let's go on an adventure. Let's read lots of quest cards. Let's do the dice rolls and everything like that. Let's do the skill checks and whatnot. And just, it's actually a lot of kind of reading story, little tidbits of story per card. I think that works very well for a game about going on quests and adventures. I think
that the best part of this is the stories, because they tie into so many of the different quests that you go on. You're like, ooh, I'm learning about the blades now, and I'm going to go see what goes on there, and they reference so many things that you get from the game, but they're not just like a complete repeat of, this is exactly what you did in the game. Here's the story that you will now do here.
Yeah.
And you can pick up a lot of different objectives, which I think is a pro and con in this game. Just as in other open world games, you have your main objective, but then you can pick up all these other side ones, little side quests, and you can complete them if you want to. You can just leave them there and, just have them sitting on your board, taking up space, but not complete them and just focus on the main quest. And I think that's really cool, unless you're playing with multiple people and then someone is like, hey, I'm going to go do all these side quests and never get done with the main quest.
Let's go over here for a bit.
Yeah, that's...
Did that happen to you?
No, it does. You do have so many side quests and things that aren't ever finished. And I would almost, what's weird is you would think that would make it more of an open world game. And I would barely consider this open world, because you have that one overarching quest that you need to finish and get done, when most open world that I'm used to, Western Legends, things like that, you pretty much, you get legendary points. However you do it, it's up to you. Do this track, that's it. But here it's like, you can do this stuff, but just this main thing you need to get done. And it's like, it almost gives you like, well, this is the main point of the game, but do some side things.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before I talked to you about it, the fact that there are some quests that just will never wrap up. But you said the game is often like that as well.
Yes.
Which, I mean, to its account, like Red Dead and things like that are as well, because you can start all these different quests and never want to finish them, decide you're going to do something different. So that is something.
In fact, if you did finish absolutely everything, that would be exhausting.
Exactly. There's no
Yeah.
way to possibly do it. But then
Someone has a 100% check mark on their Xbox, and they're like, Joey, you fool.
How many hundreds and hundreds
everything
of hours
to its
did you
completion.
spend?
But then you talk about the quests. That's where on multiplayer. Have we gone into multiplayer yet? Talk about this.
We've not. Go
Please.
for
This,
it.
that's where the game bogs down. And now when I say bogs down, you were at somewhere different in your mind. You have this game in mind. You're like, oh, it bogs down a little bit. No, the world stops. I mean, it's like it's brutal and then there's a way you can do it concurrently. If you have 4 people, everyone do their quest at the same time. Then you run into problems. First of all, there's one die you have to roll for the villains or whatever, the monsters. And there's one die, so you have to share that. Are you done? Are you done? Just remember you have 2 of those. I got to use it. And you run into that problem. Then everyone's reading their quest. Different things are going on. You're like, wait, oh, you mentioned that too? What are you guys doing with them? Or it's like, oh, I need the same card. Well, if you don't have the same card that's already taken, you go up 1. Okay, so it's a little bit, it's fine, but it's a 1 up. Or they will choose a card that you need. All these little things happen. But beyond all of that, it's not all quests take the same amount of time. So you can be sitting there, and I'm playing with gamers, and gamers normally are good about not being on devices during it. And I'm looking around, there are 2 or 3 people on their phone checking emails because there's one guy that's just taking forever. And he's not taking forever because of AP, he's taking forever because his certain quest is taking him a while. And when he finishes this, he's probably going to end up with some really great items that's going to help him in the future for all of us. So we want him to finish, but we're just sitting there. So that right there, my initial plays were higher player counts, and I'll just be honest, this game was going to get crushed at that. I was just like, and several people, you guys too, said, look, do it at 1 or 2. And that player count saved this. Because like you say, as a solo game, it shined. It has that 7th Continent feel with more tightness than 7th Continent, less randomness. As a solo game and as a just immerse yourself into the story, that's where the game shines,
Yes.
at 1 or 2.
So what's your score going to be? What are you coming down on?
Are we coming down now?
Let's do it.
You ready for scoring it?
Yeah, I've got more stuff to say. I'll wrap it into my final thoughts.
Well, I'll say there are a couple of things that bother me. I'll mention the fact that you can move, what can you move, 4?
You can move 4 spaces.
4, and then if you get a horse, you can move 5. I don't understand. Are you like walking with this horse and you're both walking quickly? I'm like, have they ever seen a horse? Like,
the horse is running at you. You're like, wait, slow down. Slow down.
You're chasing a horse. So that's, and then the double.
Doesn't Western Legends do that though? You only get like a +1 or +2 with the horse.
Western Legends, Wendy.
No, I want to know. I want to know.
So the horse in Western Legends moves a lot faster. We have a better horse, but then also
Because it's a real horse. It's not a fantasy horse.
they do a couple things. They do the double-sided coins 1 and 3. It doesn't make any sense, and that's bad enough. But then they say to put them in the save game box, then dump them out, and you have no idea what you put in there. The 1 or the 3.
Yeah, the saving doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make
Just don't do it.
any sense.
Just leave it on your table.
I talk about instances where the game gets out of its own way, and then the save system is one where it's like 80% there.
It really is.
And then gets in its own way.
It's almost like the person who came up with the save thing and the person who decided how things were going to be printed were totally different people that didn't talk.
Right, and there's a couple of things. There's 2 player aids in there, so, and they say it's a 4-player game. They know it's a 2-player game. That's why they put 2 player aids in there. So it's like, okay, do it at 2. And then another thing is when you buy stuff in the market, it's just, I don't know why, it's just like you pay a coin to see what you can buy. And if you want to buy it, you buy it, and then, I'll pay a coin to see the next one. I'm like, what kind of store do they shop at that works like that?
And that's not how the game works.
It's not. That's what I was wondering. I was like, maybe it's in the game.
No, you walk up to someone, you're like, would you like to buy everything that I collected in the last castle? Yes. Okay, here, buy it all. Now buy a couple things from you.
Okay, because that's what I didn't know that was like a thematic thing for the game.
You don't
or
like
not.
this Costco membership, like pay a coin just to go into the store?
It's like, you're no longer a member. You can now see what we have today. So that was very, but those are just some negatives that are fine. But this game, as a storytelling game, and I don't know the universe, the world as much, I come in higher than I thought I would. Initially, I did not like this game, but...
To be clear, you initially hated this game.
Yeah, I'm being kind when I say I did not.
Okay, what would your initial score have been at 4?
It was probably going to be a 4 or a 5. It was going to be low. Someone asked me if you want to play this at 4, and I said I'd rather have a root canal on a small ship in a storm. That was those are my exact words.
Okay.
But then, as a solo or 2-player game, it beats things like Seventh Continent and things because of how tight the story is there. And I think that's where I can see bringing this game out and just playing it and investing and immersing yourself into its soundtrack, playing stuff like that. So I would come in actually at an 8 for this.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
which is high because I see it and I just changed my entire vision of this game. This is a solo, mostly solitaire game for me. And as far as immersion, I do like the story this presents.
Wow, interesting.
That's really cool. Okay, well, I'm giving it a 6. I just assumed you would be where I was at or
Wow.
lower because
Okay.
of all that I had heard from that. So I'm giving this a 6 because I really enjoy being brought back to this world. I have put in a couple hundred hours into this video game, and I've, explored most of the storylines, and I've loved it. But I had to kind of let it go and move on to something else because I had no more to explore. So it was fun to come back and see the characters that I love, the places that I love, and just feel that world again. And so I think that for me was just the best part. The actual, the combat was super convoluted. I think they were trying to be innovative, and I liked it in a lot of conceptual ways. But the fact that, if I hit you with this type against this specific shield, but you have 3 different types of shields, and I have 3 different types of possible attacks, and depending on which attack depends on which shield, it might go through, it might not go through, we have to do math. It gets overly complicated in that way, and there's just so many things in this game that are overly complicated. I just couldn't give it a 7 because I'm not going to pull it out. I'm not a solo gamer, and
Okay.
so for this being a game that I see that I would pretty much only play solo, it's not going to come out. It's not going to come to my personal table. Would I play this again with Chris? I would probably play it again with Chris if he really wanted to, which is why it's a 6 and it's not lower. Because I think I would pull it out if someone else had the gumption to be like, okay, let's pull it out, let's invest, let's feel these feels again. But I'm not going to be the one to do that.
Interesting. That's funny that you're the person with the most thematic connection to what's going on
know,
here, and
that surprised
you're
me.
coming in lowest because
Yeah.
I'm giving this a 7.5.
Okay.
My first play of this was at 3 players, and I attributed the length and the kind of the bogged down slowness of the game to probably
Learning.
being a first play learn kind of a
Right.
thing, right?
Right.
But just more and more, I'm like, no, I want to play this solo. 2-player is fine. 2-player is decent. Well, our last time, because we played this together a few times at 2, and by the last time we were doing we're going to do 2 concurrent battles. So Wendy would roll for the monster, and then I would roll for myself, and then we basically just swap dice. You know what I mean? We were just
see.
alternating. You can't do that with 3 or
No.
4.
No.
No.
They sell a 5 to 8-player expansion for this.
Why?
I don't
There's no
get
chance.
it. But as a solo game, this shines so well.
Yes.
I love the story. I really have fun going through the main plot quests cards, but I also have fun just getting caught up in these side quests. This mysterious person showed up at the market, and I could go on this 4-card-long adventure and see what stories happen and do those skill checks to see if I really get the upper hand on them. Are they going to be a criminal? Am I going to apprehend them and get a key to the city? Am I just going to become a vampire on accident? There's so many cool things.
That's what gets me because I was going to come in lower, but then I realized Seventh Continent I do love as a solo game, but then it has its problems. It's just, the story just goes everywhere. This has, because I don't know the IP, it's got years of stories that they can put into the system that I've never experienced before. So, like you say, those little rabbit trails and stuff you can follow down. You're like, I have no idea. I want to go this. I'm more interested in those quests than I am this main thing I have to get done. And that's really exciting. And it just, I would play this over games like Seventh Continent.
I'm gonna
solo.
Yeah, I might even play through the campaigns again just to especially solo because you can start with a different starting quest card, and they're all gonna wind up the same, right? The main
same
quest.
general area.
But I want to see what weird, wacky adventures I can go on. You know
Exactly.
it's not higher because there are just so many issues with the game. And yet, despite all those issues, the teeny little components that look the same for herbs and coins, two things that shouldn't look the same, with these teeny tokens that are one value on one side and 3 on the other that you're supposed to throw in a box and remember that you had 7 of them. You have to grab 7 herbs and throw them in the box. There's so many dumb decisions.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's also so much good adventure and lore. So what were you going to say?
I was going to say, you know what I think? I think that the reason why you guys like this more than me might be because I have the video game and I play the video game and I would rather just play the video game.
If you're going to play something solo, you're going to fire up the computer.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit less likely to do that.
That's a really good point. And you have probably heard these words ad nauseum as far as like the stories and stuff. And we're like, this is incredible. There are vampires?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like,
I've become a vampire. It's awesome.
You were like, my mind was like, so I think that might be a reason.
I also gotta say, I like the combat. I think the combat is very clever. It has a weird push your luck element to it. But it's only great as a solo game.
Watching someone fight 3 guys and you do like one little dude at a time. Like, okay, are you done yet? Like,
the journey you go on, because at first you're like, yeah, do it. And you're like, come on, man. Towards the end, it's like,
You can be kind of pumped up and excited to cheer on your mate as they're playing. Is like, oh, you're fighting a frost giant. So I was soloing it one time, and Wendy, walked in the room, was talking to me for a little bit. She left for like 5 minutes, came back. And she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm still fighting the frost giant. A single combat encounter. But for me, it was an epic 5 minutes. You roll for the bad guy. He misses. Oh, I'm going to do some really good. I'm going to do the mismatch, damage to armor type thing to really start taking them down.
Yeah.
I like that.
See, and I felt like it was hard to follow.
As convoluted as you think it is, I think it's really fun. I like the combat a lot. I hate the combat when there's 3 of us at the table, though.
Doesn't make any sense.
So, I don't know. A lot of thoughts in here. Any other closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, that's good. So really just decide, I think, how many you're going to play it with.
Decide how many you're going to play it with.
Right. And if you would rather just play the video game, that's a very interesting consideration.
All right, so this is a rare review on the fact that people that don't know the IP come in lower or higher than people that know it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So there you go. That is Modifius's Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, the adventure game. Thanks for sticking through this review with us as we went on an adventure. My name is Chris Yi.
I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Joey Evans.
May you finish your plot quests.
And find vampires.
There's wheels of cheese everywhere. And you just steal the wheels of cheese, and then when you start running out of your life force, you just eat them and you feel better.
Skyrim refers to the mountain range that is the edge of the known world. And they believe that if you went past the Skyrim, you would fall off the earth.
100%.
It's a bit adventure, it's a bit dungeon, it's a bit... And that's why they call this an 8-bit game.
You only gave me 3 out of the 8 bits, though.
I couldn't think of any more.
You forgot force wielding.
Force wielding.
And cloud climbing.
Ooh.
Yes. Mountain goat training. And dragon riding.
If those are really parts of this, I'm in.
There are dragons.
The fact that this is called Elder Scrolls V leads me to believe that there is a prequel to this game called The Younger Scrolls.
And that's 4.
Yes.
Elder Scrolls 3.
Baby Scrolls 2.
Fetus Scrolls 1?